Hey there, it's Shauna. So, what came up yesterday in my Facebook memories was that it had been 5 years since Maggie May had her first of two TPLO surgeries. I'm not sure if you can see, that's a picture of her on the couch, leg shaved with her ice pack on, looking none too happy. And reflecting back on that picture, I can see that's about the time that she started to go more white than yellow, and also was right before my husband and I welcomed our first child. So I was very pregnant at the time, but I was just thinking about everything that's changed in the last 5 years since she's had that surgery. And I just thought I'd share with you guys how I felt during that time, how we managed it, and what happened since. So I've written down some ideas. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. So, how I felt when she was diagnosed with their first cruciate tear, I felt horrible. I felt stupid. Maggie had a chronic tear that just continually got worse. And if you think of it like a rope that starts to fray and fray and fray until it finally goes, she was having minor lameness on and off, probably since she was a puppy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And she would get better, and then if she walked too far or played too hard, it would get worse again. And finally we stopped putting it off because the limp got so bad that we couldn't ignore it anymore. I took her to the vet, and I had myself convinced, because she could sit nicely, that it wasn't a cruciate tear. Vet suggested doing x-rays, which we did. Pretty well ruled in a cruciate tear. Also diagnosed her with arthritis, and she was only 4 years old. And the vet recommended surgery, so we opted into surgery right away because we had pet insurance. And the other reason was a different option wasn't presented to us, but I knew that a big dog, she would do best with surgery, still young, still active, and we had the insurance to cover the costs. When we took her, so we took her up to Ottawa, which is about 2 hours from where we live. She had the consult on one day, stayed overnight, had the surgery on the second day she was there, and then we brought her home on the third day. So those days that she was gone, the house felt very different. I was very anxious. I know my husband was very anxious, and it's a different feeling when it's your own dog versus when it's someone you know, or it's a client whose dog's going for surgery. It's very different when it's your own dog and you feel that guilt and you feel that anxiety and that worry until you get the call from the vet that surgery's done, everything went well, they're coming out of anesthesia just fine, and everything's going okay. So you go through that. Maggie had some nausea after the first surgery, and they gave her something before she came home, so that was okay. And when she came home, you're like, oh my God, I've got my dog back, but now she's got new needs, at least for the short term. So wasn't weight bearing very much. She's got a bald leg, you've got stitches to deal with, you've got a cone. They're not supposed to be on the stairs by themselves. So there's all these new things, and you tend to feel, at least I felt, very anxious and worried, even though I had some background in it, having never had a dog myself go through it, but having worked with people for many years that have had knee replacement surgeries, and just kind of understanding the basics of general care, being confident that it was okay for her to be up and moving around, and such, and that she didn't need to be confined to her crate when we were home. When we weren't home, obviously, she went in the crate. So after that first knee, she ended up, not sure if it was an infection. Her incision looked like it opened up a bit, and I brought her into the vet just to be sure, because they didn't want infection to set in. And the vet, and it wasn't a normal vet, and I'll never forget this, she looked at the knee and the incision, and she didn't think it was infected, but she put her hand on my leg and she goes, but I think we'll give her antibiotics anyway, so I think it'll make you feel better. And I was so taken aback by that comment that I didn't say anything, and I took the antibiotics and we gave her more antibiotics. And in hindsight, I don't know that I would have done them, but again, hindsight's a great thing. So then, as most of you have heard the stat, 50% of dogs that have torn their cruciate ligament on one side will tear it in the other knee. We only had to wait 6 weeks post-op. Maggie got loose at a run, yelped, came up three-legged and torn the other side. So that was a more typical presentation, but we went through it again. Same feelings of dread, felt horrible. It happened the second time. And and she only stayed overnight one night this time because we didn't do another consult. We basically knew what was going on. The thing that happened though is we dropped her off, and I got a call. I got 2 calls the morning of surgery asking if we had dropped her off for post-op x-rays or if she was there to get the other knee done, which didn't help my anxiety level that the vet surgeon didn't know that he was doing surgery on my dog that day. But anyways, so she came home. Poor dog was very nauseated. I learned that day that when a dog drinks lots of water, that it's because they can be because they're nauseated. To learn that. So recovery in general went very well with myself having a rehab background, but the instructions that we had gotten from the vet were pretty limited, range of motion, lots of restrictions, but then didn't really give a ton of guidance as far as exercises and how to progress them. With my background, made it a bit easier, but I know a lot of folks don't have that background, are fearful of starting too soon, or maybe their dog is doing better than the recommendations or doing worse than the recommendations. So the dog doesn't get exactly often what they need at the right time. And then doing it consistently. So I've got videos of Maggie, I think 3 days after her surgery walking and 7 days after her surgery walking, and she's looking pretty good by the end of that first week after first knee surgery. So the consistency with the rehab really, really matters, but also being confident enough to do it, which I know is a big barrier for a lot of owners. So 5 years later, you would never know that Maggie had surgery. We took up running again for a while. We don't do it anymore because I just don't have the time to do it consistently enough to do it safely with her. But we walk lots. She plays lots in the backyard. She moves around great. She's got arthritis, so you'd never know it. But we manage these things. So whether it's her joint supplements, keeping her weight down, and we have fluctuated. We're on a diet again to get the weight back down. We're not perfect. But you would never know that she had it done. And then I was just looking back on whether if I had known more than I do now, would I have chosen to do surgery? Probably, knowing that she's a bigger dog, that at that time she's only 4, so she has many years to go still. Now at 9, I might make a different decision. But she did have a meniscus tear on one side, and the likelihood is that she would have needed to have surgery to have that meniscal tear removed. So, hindsight, probably still would have done the surgery, but I probably, when she was lame initially, when she was a puppy, probably should have gone and had it looked at by the vet sooner. I didn't have the training back then to know what I was looking for, even though I've got the physio background. And then she had arthritis, so we managed that as well. And most dogs that have a cruciate tear are going to have arthritis as well. So we manage that on a daily basis, again with the same things: the weight management, regular activity, the right types of activity, good food, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my reflections 5 years on from when it feels like the whole family went for surgery, but 5 years after she had both her cruciates torn and had surgery for both, 8 weeks apart. So you can do them at the same time. You can do them very close together. That's the benefits of privately paying for medical care for your dog. They offered us to go the day after she had torn the ligament, but we needed time off work and some processing time. So I hope that helps some of you know that you're not alone when you're going through some of these emotional things with your dog when they hurt themselves, because even the professionals go through that themselves with their own dogs. Cheers.